Hello and welcome to Bomb Squad, where we defuse the news and more. My name is Andrew Muggleton and I'm joined by my good friend Chris Sloan.
Hello.
And this is our new little podcast about gaming. Now, the podcast is going to be pretty kind of open and free, and we're just generally going to speak about kind of the last news of the last couple of weeks and a bit about kind of talking points on games that have happened. We'll also kind of go into a few details about games we've been playing, what we're kind of into, whether it's old or new, and obviously just muck about a bit with a couple of segments and games, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. I hope this is going to be a natural expression of our gaming thoughts. So yeah, Chris, so how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
not bad. Had a coffee.
Fantastic. Good. It's always a good start today.
Mm.
So yeah, it's always a positive move forward. Right. So let's start off and just have a bit of a discussion about kind of what have we been playing. Kind of, I suppose that's probably a nice point to start off on. So yeah, what have you been up to in the gaming world, Chris, recently?
Okay, you remember Top Gear?
Yes.
Top Gear. So you had Jeremy Clarkson, you had Richard Hammond, and James May.
That's the one.
Yeah, everyone loved Top Gear. And then Jeremy Clarkson punched that guy.
Yeah.
Remember that? Because he didn't have steak or something. So he punched the producer and they were all fired. And what happened was they made a thing on Amazon called the Grand Tour.
Okay.
Now, I know what you're thinking. The Grand Tour. This is a gaming podcast. Surely we're not going to start talking about the Grand Tour. Well, to start off, Bomb Squad's first ever game we're going to talk about is the Grand Tour video game.
Excellent, excellent.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I've played hours and hours of this video game, because that I probably would have had to claw my eyes out.
Yeah.
Or at least chop a hand off.
Okay.
This game is not great, I'll be honest with you. It cost me £12 on the PlayStation Store. And essentially it's a racing game. You know, you've got your cars, you're racing around tracks, you're racing around the Grand Tour track, which I think is called the Ebola Drome from memory.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
From the Ebola Drome.
I've seen it.
Essentially, the way the game works, you start off, you pick what season you want to play. So the Grand Tour, I realised by playing this game, is in season 3 currently.
Okay.
You start off season 1 and 2 have only got one episode in them.
Oh yeah.
So there's only one part to play in season 1 and one
Not
part
the
in
normal
season 2.
10 episodes of the season.
No,
on Amazon.
That is actually the case in season 3. I think season 3 is actually still being updated. So as the episode is released on Amazon Prime, it gets released onto the video game as well.
I see.
So I started off and I played season 1, episode 1, the first and last episode of season 1 they've put in there. And essentially what happens is you get to watch the episode of the Grand Tour.
Okay, as in the whole 60-minute episode.
I think each one is about 45 minutes. So it cuts a little bit of the filler out.
Yeah.
But essentially what happens is you get a sort of cut scene where the guys introduce what car they're talking about or what trip they've been on, and then when the episode sort of goes into a part where they're actually driving, the camera sort of pans in and it goes into the game, and you just drive.
That sounds pretty seamless and pretty good.
I mean, it is seamless, but it's dreadful. We've played a lot of like the only real driving games I've ever had much experience with, apart from like kart racing, is Gran Turismo. Like remember we played 5 a lot.
Yeah.
And that game was great, but it was more of a simulator, so it was much more in depth, and you actually had to sort of think about what you're doing. This you just hold down R2,
and that's it.
And you move, and if you go slightly off the rails because you're basically on rails, there is one way to go around everything, and if you go off that, you're just slamming into the side. You can't overcorrect too much, otherwise you spin, and it's dreadful. It feels awful. There's a few different types of game modes on it, so there's obviously just ones where it's a kind of get around this as fast as you can, or beat James May and Richard Hammond in a race, and as they go past each other, they shout things that are just random sound bites from the show.
Fantastic.
And then there's parts where, like a kart racing game, you'll drive through a little question mark box, kind of like in Mario Kart, but it gives you a power up, and there's only 3.
Nice.
One of them puts a sort of a cloud of gas over the other drivers so that it
Classic
obscures
move.
their vision.
Yeah.
And obviously these can all happen to you as well. One of them gives you a speed boost, and one of them essentially distracts the other ones by sending a text to them, and the text just appears on screen. So if they do it to you, the text just appears on your screen, and it's probably a 3 or 4 line text which you don't have time to read in the time that it's there. I'm sure it's very funny.
Okay.
I'm sure it's a funny text that they've put in there, but it essentially slows your car down.
And this would be their kind of their banter, their kind of camaraderie.
Oh, it's absolutely it's non-stop banter, this game.
Fantastic.
Just a couple of other game modes that stuck out in my head. There's one where, you know, a lot of the old Top Gear and Gran Tours, they'll do drag races to see which car's got more power or anything. And essentially the drag race, the way that it does it is, it will pan you down so you're into the car. You'll have the 2 other cars either side of you. And you hold R2 until a bar fills up to a green section.
Okay.
And you have to keep it in green and not let it go to red. If it goes to red, you won't get a good start. If you manage to keep it in green, the car starts, it goes off, and you win. That's
nice. It. Okay, so deep mechanics with that kind of really, really engaging you in various different ways.
It's so bad. And then obviously once you finish each part, you get either a bronze medal, a silver medal, or a gold medal, depending on how well you did. Mm-hmm. And that just makes it feel like a sort of a mobile game that, you know, you to try and give it some kind of replayability. It's a very poor video game.
Okay.
The other thing is when you're in when it's doing the cutscenes, so literally just parts from the TV
just
show
watching the episode,
put into the game, you can skip through it, which you get used to doing. There's actually a trophy for skipping through. So on PSN there's a trophy. I guess there's an achievement on Xbox as well for pressing the R1, which is skip, like 10 times.
Yeah. Nice.
And each time you skip, you get a little soundbite from Jeremy Clarkson saying, out of the way, or something like that. And it's
God.
There's about 5, I think. And when you're actually skipping through, when you have to skip through at least 6-7 times to get to the next bit of driving.
Yeah. The next bit of actual gameplay.
Yeah. There is actually a skip back as well, in case you missed something and you want to go back to it.
Does Jeremy harp up again then?
It's not. It's actually James May saying something for that one. Because obviously he's slow.
I see. That all makes sense.
Yeah, you know, it's a dreadful video game, but the car models look good.
Okay, so graphically, it's.
Well, I wouldn't say that because the actual the places that you're going to don't look great around. If you stop and look around you, it doesn't look great. But the actual models of the cars do look quite decent. So that for that reason, it's probably on my Game of the Year list.
Right, I wasn't expecting that twist at the end there.
I mean, when you see the LaFerrari in all its red beauty, I was sat there at home playing it and I was just inspired, and I thought, you know what, that's actually amazing.
I think that's fair enough. That's as much a reason to put it on your Game of the Year list at the end of March as any other needed, to be honest.
I mean, that, you know, I want to be truthful in this, and so it's fully up there on my Game of the Year list. But you know, obviously I feel like any other game we talk about now is going to be a bit of a come down from that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
What's something that you've played recently then that?
Well, I've for the last month, it's taken me so much longer than I would normally take to finish this kind of game. But I've been playing Metro Exodus quite a lot, which is the 3rd game in the Metro series. You had Metro 2033, and then Metro Last Light, its sequel. Developed by 4A Games, and it's this kind of post-apocalyptic first-person shooter, very, very atmospheric. It's all about the location, the world they build, and the cool thing about it is that it's just a bit different than a normal first-person shooter, mainly because of the fact that it's all set in Russia, which is quite nice and refreshing and different. I think they're Ukrainian developers. They're set in Ukraine, I believe. But yeah, the setting being in this post-apocalyptic Russia, everything is so desolate and destroyed. First 2 games, you're pretty much, as the game implies, in the metro of Moscow. You're kind of living in settlements, kind of trying to get by. There's some kind of supernatural stuff but what I always really liked about them is that everything is about the environment. It's all about building this world, this incredible location, which you, although you maybe not told a story beat, you kind of learn it through what's happening in the environment, it's just so cool and different compared to most first-person shooters, which are pretty kind of summer blockbuster film-esque in how they tell their story. But yeah, Exodus is a bit of a break from that. You start out kind of in a similar fashion in the Moscow metros, but then very quickly you get out of there, and without spoiling too much, I'm sure if you've seen a trailer or anything like that, you will know that it breaks out from these very linear corridors that you would normally go down to into these kind of expansive levels, which it's not open world. You can't jump back and forward between different places, but it opens up these levels into these big complex areas where you've got a couple of loose objectives, but to go about them, you just kind of do what you want. You go in any direction you want. If you want to kind of spend hours and hours just looking around the locations and doing essentially nothing, that's absolutely fine. It's somewhat even encouraged, I'd say.
Do you think it's I mean, I've a lot of my recent games that I've played that have been open world, like Breath of the Wild, I haven't played actually for a while now, but I still haven't finished it actually. Whenever you explore, whenever you go off into the nooks and crannies, there's like a good reason to do that.
Yeah.
Would you say that in the Exodus open world, it rewards you for going for like exploration? Or
absolutely, I think that's one of the best things it does actually is, and similar to the previous games, what made them interesting was that everything was there for a reason, every single bit of detail, and it's what made the worlds feel so lived in and so real. And this again just takes that to the next level. You've got these huge expansive levels where you can, as I say, you can go anywhere you want, but if you do go off the beaten road, if you do look into, you see a little hut kind of in the distance, there's almost certainly going to be some sort of kind of environmental storytelling, some sort of weird character that you haven't met before, or some sort of benefit like a upgrade to your kind of hazmat suit, or maybe some new air filters and stuff. And it really does reward you every now and then. Kind of obviously, it's just a place in the world, but the vast majority of the time, it really does actually encourage you to do that, which is so refreshing and so nice. The game does have a few quirks, with it being kind of there's often a kind of an expression used about kind of these Eastern European game developers that kind of Euro jank, but I think it elevates itself further than that. But it does have a few bugs and issues in that regard, which are slowly being ironed out. So I know there's a couple of updates that have come out, which have so far, by no means am I kind of annoyed at the game or anything with some of these bugs. But there was one where I got stuck in a corrugated bit of iron in a building and I couldn't get out of it. And my autosave saved at that point. And there's no other type of save system in the game. So at that point, I literally had nothing to do other than to go back to the last checkpoint, which was like 45 minutes ago. The other way around. The last save I had to go back to, whereas the checkpoint had just done it as I went into the bit of iron.
So there's no manual save?
There is a manual save, but you have to manually do it. So the auto save is a kind of checkpointing system, and it decided to make a checkpoint just as I got stuck, and there was no way out. So I literally had to go back to the last time I'd physically saved, which I think was 45 minutes ago. Luckily, I hadn't really done that much. I'd been mainly just messing about, so it was okay. But every now and then, something like that kind of rears its head, which can be a little frustrating. But other than that, I think the game is phenomenal. I actually just finished it, and I think the story goes in some really interesting ways, kind of unexpected ways as well.
Does it bring back the aliens from 2?
Well, so this is an interesting thing. I don't want to obviously spoil it.
Maybe
too
don't
much.
spoil it.
Yeah, I won't spoil it. But it's again, it subverts your expectations quite consistently.
There's a couple of things that I wanted to ask about this actually.
Yeah.
So obviously, one of the big draws of this game is the weapon system, because obviously you can pretty much modify everything and anything in any way.
Yeah, there's a preset kind of like 5 or 6 different types of things, like the stock of the gun or the scope, which you can change, but there'll be multiple different things you can do to them.
I just remember from playing, because I played I think I finished both of 2033 and Last Light.
Yeah.
And I just remember the shotgun.
Yeah.
It's one of the best shotguns that I've used.
I think it's called the Shambler is the one that you're referring to, which is it's got this great kind of loading mechanism where you see the bullets actually attached on the side of the gun and they kind of feed then into it. And yeah, that's back in all its glory. And again, you can then modify it. So instead of taking only kind of 5 bullets normally, you can add a massive magazine of like 20 bullets. So you can just keep on rattling these shots off.
The only other thing I wanted to ask about this is, and it's something I was thinking about earlier, it's about because I think there's a karma system in the game, isn't there?
There is, yes, yeah.
Does it, so obviously, without spoiling anything, does it affect the ending of the game and how? Absolutely,
yeah. So the previous 2 games had a karma system which gave you a good ending or a bad ending. And there's no way of well, at least in the previous games, there was no way of tracking how well you were doing other than when you did something kind of morally good, the kind of game would flash white a bit and there'd be this weird little noise that would happen, and that meant you did something morally good. If you racked up enough of those, you got the good ending. If you didn't, you got the bad ending or the negative ending. In this game, that is 100% back. I completely forgotten about it, and then I did something which I was like, I wasn't told to do this, but I kind of saved someone, and it flashed, and I was like, oh yeah, the karma system. So that is back. That does affect the game. There is a good ending. There is a bad ending. However, this time, the game is set over the course of a year. So you kind of go through the seasons, not too unsimilar like The Last of Us. But in those seasons, you have one big open world level, and then there's a couple of smaller levels either side of the beginning and the end of those ones. The big levels, there's 3 of them. And each time, depending on how many good things you do with the karma system, a character will either come with you, stay with part of the team, or leave, depending on how well you do. There's no way to track this, so you just have to hope that you've done enough, which can be a bit nerve-wracking, a bit frustrating, I suppose. But it also then, I suppose, it rewards you doing that exploring, you pushing all the boundaries, you finding out all the little secrets. If you think something is going to be good, generally speaking, the game will agree that it's a morally good thing to do. So yeah, it's a fascinating system, and again, it doesn't hold your hand in any way, which is quite refreshing and quite nice in that regard. So yeah, it's fantastic game. I hugely recommend it. If you like a first-person shooter, if you want something a bit different than just explosions and kind of drama the whole time, this is a quiet and quite slow at times, kind of thoughtful game. But yeah, wholeheartedly recommend it. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Do you think it sounds better than the Grand Tour?
Well, I'm not sure because I haven't played the Grand Tour, so I can't comment on it. Definitely, I can't make that critical analysis. But I think there is a chance that they may be duking it out at the end of the year for Game of the Year. I would say from what you've told me, I think the Grand Tour probably is going to pip it. I think it sounds like it's got the better visuals which captivated you, the better banter, definitely. I mean, there's a bit of banter in Metro, but it doesn't sound like it's anything on the level of the Grand Tour game.
Russian banter as well might be a bit different.
Exactly. Slightly different expectations with that.
Excellent.
But yeah, no, so that's great. Was there any other games you've been playing or you wanted to kind of chat about?
Yeah, just like briefly, I was doing a little scan of the PSN store.
Oh yeah.
And I was checking what I was going to get a good deal on and stuff that I wanted to play, and I saw Valkyria Chronicles Remastered.
Yes. Okay. Talk to me about this.
I remember seeing years ago adverts for Valkyria Chronicles, and just from searching for a new JRPG to play, and it was always one of the ones that everyone recommended highly, and I always wanted to play it, but just never got around to it. So,
this is kind of weird. We're talking back in the PS1, PS2 days, is it?
Oh, let's see.
I think it's PS1 kind of days, because I'm sure I remember playing Final Fantasy 9 and my friend playing Valkyria Chronicles.
Yeah.
And being Hang on,
let me just go into the. Let me Wikipedia that. You talk.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely fine. Well, I'll mention a couple of other things then about Metro that I didn't mention. The one of the things which I think is so fantastic about it is how tactile the world feels. And what I mean by that is there's this incredible way that whenever you want to do any modifications to your weapons, whenever you want to look at your map or anything, the game doesn't break. The game doesn't pause. If you want to look at your map, he literally gets out a clipboard with a map on it, and you look at it. Then you need to put that map away to see if you're facing in the right direction and where you want to go. If you want to modify one of your weapons, he kind of slings around his backpack, opens it up, and then you see the weapon there, and you physically see everything come on and off of this gun. And it's just little things like that consistently in the world. When you're climbing up something, you see the character's hands. They're really detailed and beautiful, which seems weird to say about a game that's got beautiful hands. But they are so detailed, and everything's so detailed in the game. But it all just feels so real and so. I used the word earlier, tactile. You can physically feel all of these different things in the world, and I've never experienced that like from another game. It's amazing how it does it, and I've got a compliment on it. It's fantastic. Talk to me about Valkyria Chronicles then.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you're a little bit off with your
okay, maybe.
So from here, what I can tell from this, it originally came out on PS3.
PS3?
In 2008,
Never.
Valkyria Chronicles 1. I don't know if there's maybe an earlier
maybe there's another Valkyria
series, yeah. There might well be, but so the remastered version came out on PS4 in 2016. Mm-hmm. It's currently on the PSN store for I think it's like £6.50. It's so cheap at the moment, and I've really enjoyed the beginning. I've got a bit frustrated with it at times.
Yeah. Why? What's been frustrating about it?
Well, let me explain what the game is basically first. You are a character called Welkin Gunther.
Welkin Gunther.
Which sounds like a name. It sounds like a name that I'd just sort of make up, but that is actually the main character's name.
Fantastic.
You sort of befriend a town watch captain called Alicia, I can't remember how they pronounce it and thing. And I think there's going to be a sort of little romance story going on with them a little bit later.
Okay,
nice. I've not quite got there yet. It's sort of been hinted at a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. It's full JRPG style. It's great. All the way the game actually is set out, it's kind of like in a book,
mm-hmm.
and you will go through and unlock little sections of chapters, and it will play out. There's a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah.
And you start them, and you can. Just watch these cutscenes and see what's actually going on in the story, and then other parts will unlock actual battles.
Yeah.
Now,
how does the battling work?
So the battle essentially works. The first couple of chapters. So I'm on chapter 5, I think currently. I think there's 18 in total, but I think the first two and a half chapters are basically the tutorial. So I'm not super far in it at all, but essentially you will have a certain number of units that you control going into battle. And there are different classes they could be. Obviously, Welkin, your main character, he is in charge. He's basically in charge of a tank. So you will have a tank in battle. There are scouts who can move further but do less damage. There are shock troopers that can't move that far but are much more powerful and have a higher defense. Generally, you've got, I think they're called lancers, who can take out tanks, but they're quite slow and but they're heavily armored. You've got snipers who. My experience so far, they're dreadful.
Okay. That would turn out to be probably the best thing at the end of the game. Exactly.
They'll be the best thing. I'll keep leveling them up though.
Yeah.
And you've also got a support character who can bring extra ammo and I think heal as well. And then essentially it's turn based, so you'll select a unit. You can, and then instead of it being sort of tiled, so that you move a character a certain number of tiles like Final Fantasy Tactics, mm-hmm. you actually go into a sort of third person with them.
Okay.
And you'll run them around the battlefield. If you run into an enemy sight line, they can shoot at you. It's the same for you as well. So if an enemy runs past you, that your character will immediately fire on them. You can then shoot, and it goes into a sort of third person aiming mode. Obviously, if you can get headshots, it does better, but there's less to aim at. So you can you trade off accuracy there. And there'll be different objectives. So sometimes the objectives in a mission will be to take an enemy base, defeat all enemies, kill their captain, or so I think one or two of them were just to escape an area actually as well.
Yeah.
But I love that sort of game. I was checking actually beginning. There's no difficulty modifier in it. So it's all about. It's very tactical. You can be, and I was literally on the cusp of winning. I think the last one I played a couple of days ago, of actually winning this skirmish against some of the enemies. And then a Lancer just came out of nowhere and just all the tanks have got a sort of weak spot on the back, and if you hit that dead on with like the anti-armor bullets or the lances they've got, they would just, it's one hit on the tank pretty much. And if Welkin dies or Alicia dies, if they die, that's game over.
What about everyone else then? Are they kind of disposable, as it were?
Yeah, they are disposable in that you can then go back to the barracks at home and pick new people to come in. But I've just been doing a mission where two of the people, one Lancer and one Shock Trooper, they are sort of questioning my authority, and you kind of get to know them a bit. So that it is one of those games. I remember playing the old XCOM as well, where you'll actually kind of build up a story in your head about these characters a little bit. But this actually goes a bit further because it actually gives each one a sort of trait. So, for example, some of them will have a trait where it's like called Lone Wolf, and they work better when they go off on their own, and they'll get a stat boost or whatever. And some of them can be a bit funny as well. Like one of them is one of the statuses things is basically likes girls or something. So he'll work, like a guy will work better if he's in a team just with girls.
Okay, interesting.
Which is very Japanese.
Yeah. Sounds it.
But it's really fun, and essentially it's I didn't realize this when I bought it, but it's kind of set in Europe. But so the map is Europe, but none of the countries are called actually what they are.
Right. Yeah.
And essentially there's a conflict between two superpowers, one on the west, one on the east. And you are from this tiny little country that's kind of in the middle of this huge war that is trying to maintain independence and not get involved in this war. But obviously you get invaded, and that's the beginning of the game. It's really cool. I like the fact that there's a lot of I like cutscenes. I love turn-based combat, which is on the wane at the moment. So I love this sort of game, but I think it wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea nowadays when all anyone wants to do is play a battle royale and shoot everything non-stop.
Absolutely. Well, that's all there is to do in life.
But I think it's great. I think it can be super frustrating, especially because it's quite old. Because it was it's 11 years old. It doesn't have a very good it doesn't have any autosave actually. So you have to sort of constantly be saving so that you don't have to watch the same cutscene again, or also you can start at the beginning of a battle that was quite difficult. You're basically doing a battle, you save. You watch a cutscene, you save. So that can be quite frustrating, but that's just because of the age of the game. So as long as you get used to that, it's quite... I really enjoyed it so far, what I've played out of it.
Excellent. And how does everything happen? Is it in a like a 3D space? Are you on a grid of some sort? Is it just kind of you walk into a level, or...
So you'll select the level from the book, from the sort of book that's telling the story, and it will take you in, and there'll be a little screen with a map of the battlefield, and your commander will say, this is what you have. These are the objectives of this battle, and then you will get a screen that shows you where you are starting out, and kind of it might show you a couple of enemies or where the enemy bases are, but it won't show you exactly what you're up against yet. That's why you've got scouts who go and see where the enemies are, how many tanks they've got, things like that. Then you basically use your analog stick, you select a unit to take charge of, to actually control. That's when it jumps down into third person. There's no grid, you're not locked onto squares. It's very free, you can go where you want. There's a bit of actually different levels you can go. There's buildings you can climb to the top of, so you can get a better vantage point.
So you can use the environment a bit to your advantage.
You can use the environment. A lot of it can be destroyed by the tanks as well, actually, if you roll through them. Trees and blockades, things like that, sandbags. And, if you've played a game like that before, you know that cover is a huge deal. Making sure you enter. So basically, you've got a bar that as you run goes down. And when you get to the bottom of that, you can't run anymore. You can select the same unit again to control, because you'll get maybe 5-6 goes per turn, and you can select them again, but they've got the bar is slightly depleted, so they can keep going but not as far. And that's basically how it works. So it's really enjoyable. I've enjoyed what I've played so far, and I will hopefully try to complete it. I think it's been good so far.
Fantastic.
Right on my street.
Excellent, brilliant. Cool. Well,
what about you? You just finished a game that you've been saying you're going to finish for years. And
we'll talk about The Witcher 3. It's obviously, it came back out in 2015, I think, which I remember both of us, we played like a good probably 10-15 hours of it each. I think you actually played a bit more than myself. And I think what happened was it was around about a similar-ish time to Metal Gear Solid 5 coming out. I believe, I might be completely wrong here, but something came out which took away my attention, and I thought, right, I will get back to this one day. I will finish the game. Everyone says it's absolutely incredible. And lo and behold, it's taken me almost 4 years to actually get back into it, with one or two little false starts here and there. But I finally finished it kind of at the beginning of this month in March. And my goodness, that it is so good. Like, for myself personally, it is just a cast iron 10 out of 10 game. I think it goes to so many interesting places. It can get so in depth and in detail with kind of all the way you can fight and everything. It is obviously a role playing game, so it kind of it builds on that a lot. However, yeah, for bang for your buck, this game is incredible. There is literally unlimited amount of stuff to do. Not quite actually literally, but there is so much to do in the game, which is probably one of the biggest points of kind of it's hard to kind of get back into it, because you feel like you're lost almost if you haven't played it for a while, and which I did actually pick up from where I was instead of starting again. I probably should have started again, because I did have to do a lot of kind of back reading to see what I'd missed and what I couldn't remember. But yeah, I cannot sing its praises enough. I'm hopefully going to get onto the expansions, which are also meant to be really great. I remember Blood and Wine, an expansion for the game, actually won like several kind of RPG of the Year awards and stuff. So I'm fascinated to see where it goes with that, and how it caps it all off, and how it finishes the story of Geralt. So yeah, huge fan of The Witcher, and will recommend everyone who's got any sort of interest in fantasy games whatsoever to give it a shout. You can pick it up pretty cheap now, because obviously it's a couple of years old. But yeah, fantastic stuff.
I think you can get the game and all the expansion passes for about 15 quid,
which is ridiculous.
All like, and not with having to buy the physical game as well.
Yeah,
digital download.
It's incredible value for money. If you don't have that much time for gaming, but you want to get kind of in depth, or kind of get something with a lot of meat on the bone, then that is the one to go for.
I know exactly. I've worked out why I stopped playing it.
Have you looked at the dates?
Yeah, so I couldn't see where. So Phantom Pain did come out the same year.
It was September. Phantom Pain,
was it? So Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it just
May.
Now. I think it was slightly earlier than that. It came out, and then the next month, Arkham Knight came out. So for me, obviously I love the Arkham game. So I probably put getting on for about 10 hours into The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Didn't get too far, actually, having spoken to you after you've completed it.
Yeah.
But then Arkham Knight came out, and that just took over. And then there was a lot of other stuff that came out around the same time. Stuff that I wanted to play, like Lego Batman 3, and there was the Game of Thrones Telltale game that was coming out at the same time.
That come out then?
Yeah.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't feel like that long ago.
So yeah, there was a lot of stuff coming out around the same time. And that was I just saw Grand Theft Auto 5 come out, but that was for Windows, so it was a few years after, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, from what I can remember about it, one of the best things that I remember from The Witcher 3 is, obviously I didn't get actually that far at all in the main storyline of the game, but the things that stuck out to me were that's just the side quests.
Yeah, the quality of the side quests is unparalleled, at least from what I've seen in other games.
Even in games that I absolutely, games that I adore, like even open world games like that. I'm trying to think of an open world game off the top of my head. Stuff like Breath of the Wild, which we'll talk about again. A lot of the side quests are great, but some of them, it's a massive open world game. A lot of the side quests are, I've got this sword that I loved and I can't find it. Please, can you find it for me? You go to this cave, you fight some stuff, you pick the sword up, you go back to them. Whereas this, the side quests actually will pose their own sort of ethical questions to you.
There's emotional weight.
There's a huge emotional weight in them, and there'll be actually different outcomes that, maybe a side quest might be, you could keep that sword for yourself because it's good, or you could take it back for the reward. But in this case, it's actual massive choices you're making just in a side quest, and this side quest could go off and be a 3-hour quest on its own.
Exactly. I think it does a very, very good job of blurring the line between what is a side quest and what is your main story mission. And I think it does it very cleverly, at least from what I can understand, is a lot of the main story missions will have you go do something, go talk to someone, and that person will then ask you to do something else, or kind of there'll be another mission related to them, which is actually technically a side mission. It's nothing to do with the main storyline, but because the same person you've been speaking to in the main storyline gives you that side quest, it feels natural that it's part of the main story. So these small little insignificant things you have to go do end up feeling like they are actually part of the main story that's been told. And it's so clever the way it does that. It's fantastic.
I think it's cool as well because it's anytime we play like a role-playing game, it's either a traditional Western role-playing game. You've got, obviously I've just got Dragon Age on the brain, but stuff like that where you've got your warrior, you've got your mages, you've got your rogues.
We're talking fantasy setting,
high fantasy, or it's a Japanese role playing game where that's its own complete genre in itself. But because this is from a developer from Poland, where the whole Witcher, I was doing some reading up on the Witcher, is taken from a book series. The idea of the Witcher, it's so different. The whole culture that it comes from is so different to anything that we're used to. It makes it feel so fresh, even though it's the third game in a series, and it's actually a game tying up a lot of the storyline from 1 and 2, from what I can tell. It just feels so different and fresh compared to what you sort of play normally.
I think it's similar to what 4A Games are doing with Metro. It because of the expectation of these kind of the big American Western developers, these kind of Eastern European developers are coming in with these really different ideas, and as you say, they feel fresh because we're so used to just the same cut templates used for these open world games. There's so many of them now over the last couple of years that it's become such a big genre to jump into, that whenever something does come about which is just a bit different, it automatically feels so much more interesting. Huge fan of The Witcher. I know you said I think you were gonna.
Yeah, well, I bought it. I think I bought it. Well, I bought it when it came out. I've got the physical copy, but I'm pretty sure I sold it. I think I sold it when I was trying to get rid of a lot of physical games that I had. But yeah, so I've rebought it. I've got it downloaded. I want to keep going with Valkyria, and I'm also playing a bit of Divinity Original Sin, number 1 as well. But I think Witcher I might jump into in the next couple of weeks. Get back into it. I'm going to start again though. I'm going to start again.
It's probably a good idea, to be honest, to just cut fresh with it. But we'll get your thoughts kind of obviously on it once you've
definitely. Once I've finished it, I think probably.
Fantastic, cool. Well, let's move on to the next little kind of section here, which is, I think we're just going to do a bit of a discussion about the news and kind of announcement, game launches, and just the kind of general gaming world and what's happening in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, with this being the first episode, we'll go back a couple of weeks to see any dramatic things that happened during kind of March and maybe a bit of February as well. But normally we'll look at doing this kind of every 2 weekly, a bit of a summary of what's happened. So let's start first of all with game announcements, which are always exciting. It's always a great thing because you get to see what's coming out soon. And we had a Nintendo Direct, was it? I think a couple of weeks ago, which we had loads and loads of things come out of that. So I've got a bit of a list here of some of the main ones, which I think we can talk about. There'll always be things which we don't know much about, so I'm always kind of a bit hesitant to try and chat too in depth about something we don't have experience with or anything like that. But I think for you especially, I remember you saying that. So for example, one of the games that was announced was Super Mario Maker 2, which I don't think either of us ever played number 1.
No.
Both kind of intrigued by it. But now that you've got a Nintendo Switch, so you were saying that you were quite interested in this.
Yeah, and not from, I mean, obviously, the name of the game is Super Mario Maker, but I'm never someone when these games come out that you can make your own levels. I'm never someone that really wants to.
Sure. I think we'll come back to that in a minute.
Oh, we definitely, we will.
Dreams.
But the creativity of some people who can just sit there for hours and create these levels is so cool. And so I think being able to play that, and I think one of the cool things about Super Mario Maker was that it gives you the option of what style of Mario you want.
Yeah.
So you could make it look like Paper Mario, you can make it look like more 3D.
Absolutely.
So I think having that option means it's going to be such a cool, varied game.
And the premise of this is literally just to make a level of Mario, basically, or multiple levels.
And I think you can also play, obviously, ones that people have made online,
Yes,
but then you can also kind of vote if you liked it or not.
Okay.
And then there will be a sort of, top 10 list of that.
Yeah.
There'll be lists of ones that people have liked a lot, and so you can jump in and see what they were. Obviously, people can then just sort of like cheese you a bit and make levels where you could just die. You just start and you die straight away, and it's quite funny. But yeah, it's a game that I've seen a lot of highlights from, on YouTube and stuff like that. So for the first one, at least. So the second one coming out, I think will be a really big deal.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, fantastic. And so then another thing that was announced, which again, a lot of this will be related to yourself, because obviously you've got a Switch. I don't, which I know is shameful. I will get one soon, I promise. So we had Zelda Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Kind of the remaster kind of version of it announced. Which again, you've just recently started playing. Well, not recently, but you got into Breath of the Wild last year, the year before. When it came out.
When it came out, I think. So I got the Switch quite early. And I've still not finished it. I think I've done 3 of the 4 Divine Beasts or whatever.
Okay.
I will get around to that one day. I think the Zelda games are just a massive gap in games that I've played, really.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, I think it's just because I didn't really have Nintendo consoles when I was younger, and obviously, the super old ones are too old for me anyway, but I've dipped back in. I've played a bit of, I've played a fair chunk of Ocarina of Time when I think I rebought that on the store when I had my 2DS.
Nice.
Years ago. So I played a fair bit of that on there. The online on the Switch, you can play the original Legend of Zelda, and I think 2 as well. I think that's on there. So I've played a little bit of that. But yeah, so any kind of remaster that they do, I'll jump on to actually have a go at these. So yeah, really excited by that.
Excellent.
I really wanted to play the Majora's Mask. But I don't think that is that on Switch. I think it came out just before Switch.
Yeah, I don't think there is a version on Switch. As far as I know.
That. Yeah, maybe check that in a second, but
we'll check that.
Yeah, I really wanted to play that because that's one that I think divided a lot of people in terms of how they feel about it. But a really cool premise, that one.
Excellent. Yeah. So then, another game mentioned, which again we both have kind of history with, was Tetris 99, which came up. Which, as we were saying earlier, everyone wants to do a battle royale game, and here we go. This is Tetris and battle royale.
This is the best one as well.
Absolutely.
So cool. Such a good game.
Yeah. So obviously, premise being that it's Tetris. You're playing Tetris. It's pretty classic Tetris with most of the modern rule sets. You've got you've got a hold button.
Yep.
Don't you? You've got hard and soft drops.
Yeah. Everything.
But the idea being is that you are playing against 99 other people at the same time, and these people, when they clear lines, they can target you, they can send you rubbish, kind of, which gives you those kind of grey lines underneath it.
It pushes you up. It pushes you more into danger of losing.
Push you close to the end, and then you've got to fight back by clearing your own lines, doing T-spins, doing all clears, doing all those kind of things, and you will be then shooting lines back to other people. And I'm right in thinking that the game, the actual speed of the Tetris and the music and everything increases the further through you get. So as people are dropping out, that increases the speed of the game, increases the music's tempo, and obviously then as you get towards like the last 10, for example, it's all getting a bit hectic and a bit insane.
Oh, absolutely.
So you've been playing a bit of it.
Yeah, I've played a bit of it. I'm okay at Tetris. I'm not amazing at Tetris, but I think the best I've ever got was like 9th.
Okay,
8th.
so you braked into the top 10.
I was pretty pleased with that, to be honest. But then it just gets crazy. You get people who play it who are absolutely insane. Yeah. And I'd love to one day get a win, but I'm not sure I'll ever get there.
It will come. It'll happen.
Yeah, I'll just keep plugging away.
Yeah.
I'll practice. I'll play a bit of Tetris Effect. Get the skills up in VR as well, and then bring it back to the Switch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not super. I think the actual like controls on the Switch, I need to get used to the best way to do that. If it's better to have the Switch with the Joy-Cons in it, or if it's
of
better
course.
to maybe, because I've heard using the Pro controller is not good.
Is it because of the face button?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I think there must be a better way of actually controlling it.
Sure.
I need to get better at that because it doesn't feel great.
Okay.
The way that
holding the actual Switch itself?
Yeah, using it in portable.
Okay. Fair enough.
Really cool game though. Love it.
Excellent. Now, there was also mention of a little game, or a little two games, that I think you are, I think it'd be fair to say you are somewhat excited about. I'm talking about two games, or one game, called Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Oh.
So talk to me about this. What is Pokemon Sword and Shield?
So obviously it's the new actual next generation of Pokemon games. We had Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. That came out last year, at the end of last year, which I bought and played and loved. Do you know what? It's the first time I ever actually completed my Pokedex in a Pokemon game. I've never done that before. Yeah.
Didn't do it on the Game Boy?
I never completed, because the thing was, I'd never played it with a group of people. It was always just me playing like red or playing blue.
And obviously with Pokemon, there are certain Pokemon that are exclusive to that version of the game.
Yeah, so that'll be the case again with Sword and Shield, obviously. Yeah. Whether I just buy both of them.
Yeah.
And then just transfer them,
Okay.
Because I just want to complete my Pokedex again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were really excited by this, because obviously we were thinking, is this going to be the moment? We've got the Switch, this new hardware. Is this going to be the time where we have a proper
big Pokemon RPG-esque type experience?
That kind of open world. And I don't think it's going to quite be that.
Okay.
I think it is going to be a bit more broad and a little bit more open. I think there will be a bit more, but
compared to previous ones.
Compared to previous ones.
Yeah.
But I think it is going to be a little bit more on the rails and sort of very similar to older games as well. It's the setting of it looks like it's set in. Everyone keeps talking about this. It's sort of England, countryside, which is nice. It's
a nice change.
And I think there's going to be a new. Obviously, they brought in Mega Evolutions a couple of generations ago, which is a big deal. And I think this time they're bringing something in to do with armor.
Yes,
some kind of armored Pokemon deal going on.
Because they haven't. Not obviously. They had the initial reveal showing kind of what it was going to look like graphically and things like that, but they haven't gone into all of the details yet. We haven't had the big.
We haven't seen any armored stuff.
Okay.
I think there was a trademark for an armored Mewtwo.
Right.
That was someone dug out somewhere. So that's quite exciting, and I think they'll tie that in. Mewtwo's going to be a big deal. I think in the upcoming Detective Pikachu movie.
Of course.
Did you see the trailer for that?
I actually haven't seen the. I've seen the first one. I've seen the initial trailer. I haven't seen the newer.
Because Mewtwo's in that trailer.
Okay, fair enough.
That's like the big reveal at the end.
And does he look out of place like Pikachu
No, it
does?
looks what? No, he looks great. It looks really cool. So I think they'll probably want to capitalize on that, because I'm not sure when. I think Detective Pikachu comes out this year.
It's definitely this year.
And I think Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Which just brings me on to another section that I want to bring into the show, which is how many days is it until Pokemon Sword and Shield? We don't know.
Okay.
Because they've not given us a specific release date yet. But I did some date counting.
Yeah.
And I worked out that essentially, if the latest the date the game can come out is the 20th of December, that means we are 265 days from Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Okay. Is that a Friday?
That's a Friday.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming it won't come out on the 27th. That's the assumption that I'm making.
Yeah, I doubt.
So yeah, that's the end of that section of the show that I call "How long is it until we play Pokemon Sword and Shield?"
Perfect, brilliant, cool. So let's move on then from Nintendo, and there was a couple of other game announcements that have happened. We had Borderlands 1 Remastered just very recently announced, which is great. I'm so confused as to why this hasn't happened already. We had the Handsome Jack collection, which obviously makes sense because it's only the games of Handsome Jack, but why couldn't they have just made a Borderlands collection, so the Handsome Jack one had Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel as part of it, which was great. It was really great having them again and being able to play them with friends and get into that kind of loot-based objective. However, there was no Borderlands 1, so everyone was thinking kind of, is that it? They've forgotten about it, it's gone. But no, they announced Borderlands 1 Remaster, so cool, I suppose. But the bigger event was Borderlands 3 being announced. So this is the proper sequel to this, promising, I think it was over 1 billion guns, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure Borderlands 2 had over a gazillion guns.
That was marketed that way, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah, exactly. Or it might have been a bazillion guns. But this time, however, the big change, the most important thing with Borderlands 3 is not about the new characters. It's not about the graphics looking better or anything like that. It's about the fact that they have a gun which has legs on it. It's a walking gun. It's absolutely incredible. Previously, you've had certain guns where, for example, when you reload, he will chuck the gun out and it will be a grenade and it will blow up. So Borderlands has always been known for these ridiculous kind of weapons and things like that. This time, next level, a gun with legs, which I think says everything you need to know about Borderlands.
I was just checking, it's been 5 years since the pre-sequel.
Yeah, which even that
time.
wasn't the main studio doing it.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So, yeah, Borderlands 2, I think, maybe 7 years ago?
Was that, what generation was that? Was that
PS3.
PS3 and
PS3.
X360?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we almost didn't get one, I guess, because
exactly.
we're probably coming into land with the current generation.
So yeah, no release date for that. I think they promised more information, I think in April, where we'll properly get to look at the game. All we've had so far was kind of a 3-minute trailer, which was a classic Borderlands trailer. A good bit of dubstep, a good bit of cool kind of rock kind of music, and showing off the new characters with a good heavy dose of sarcasm in it as well. But yeah, looking forward to that. I think it's coming out in a space where so many games have kind of taken what Borderlands did with a kind of whole loot-based system where you are just trying to find the better gun, this new weapon with better stats, and cooler name and cooler look about it. So many games have come out and have kind of experimented with that and built upon it almost. You've got your things like your Destiny, your Anthem, these games as service, which kind of was what Borderlands almost was initially. So it'd be really interesting to see. And you've got Battle Royales coming out as well. So it'd be really interesting to see how it distinguishes itself in the current climate, or whether it needs to do anything, whether it can just be back to basics, all about a story and a ton of different crazy guns. So it'll be intriguing to see how it all spins out, especially because there's been quite a bit of controversy surrounding the studio and the kind of the owner of that. But we'll leave that aside for the time being, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can move on from there. So a couple of smaller things were mentioned as well. We had Diablo, Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2 coming out on GOG or GOG, which is also owned by CD Projekt Red, who are the people who made The Witcher. So that's just out of the blue, out of nowhere. Interestingly, not coming out on Battle.net, Blizzard's own launcher for games. Instead, they're partnering with GOG to kind of bring back these old school games, which I'm over the moon about. I love those games so much. So I'm glad to be able to get them on kind of current hardware. We also had No Man's Sky, the kind of infamous space exploration sim, for having a slightly rocky start to its life. Hello Games, the kind of small little studio in England, they announced the next update for that, which is we've already actually had an update called Next. This one's called Beyond this time. I think they said there's going to be 3 big parts to it. One being some sort of expanded multiplayer, although they've promised it's not going to be an MMO. And the one that was just announced was VR coming to the game, which seems like something it should have been there from the start, but it's coming in now. They're adding it in. I think it could be incredible. I'm hoping there's still probably, or still hoping there's a bit more to the game that's going to be added. So things to actually do other than just kind of base building and exploring.
I think there's a lot of stuff that probably should have been in that game when it launched. Well,
I think absolutely everything that's come out in the last 2 or so years should have been in there from the start.
It was such a big deal when it came out, and it was so, I don't know, it seemed like it was just so disappointing, how shallow that game was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I was someone who actually played quite a lot of it in its initial state and enjoyed my time in it. However, was definitely left wanting, thinking...
It was just sort of mindless, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was like Minecraft without the charm and without kind of a really in-depth system other than just unlimited amount of planets to go to.
And Minecraft, you could sort of like it was it was like building to somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, you could there was that little thing. Oh, I could go and what was it? The Ender.
Nether.
The Ender Dragon, was that a thing?
I think so.
Something like that.
Yeah, something.
There was
along
always that.
There
thing
was
you
an
could
end
do.
boss.
Yeah, there was like
there
was stuff that you could do. There was mysteries to solve.
Yeah.
Whereas like No Man's Sky, it was just
There was the mystery, but it turned out that the mystery basically was nothing.
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. It just
sorry,
started you again.
spoilers.
Yeah, it just started the game again, didn't it?
Yeah, essentially.
The Witness. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think imagine if they'd held off and included VR and included whatever they added in the second expansion. Imagine if they held off and had that stuff to make the game fun.
Yeah.
And then had the big hype around it.
Yeah.
Because I imagine the number of people playing this game now is probably good, but nowhere near what they could have had.
No, I think it launched to huge numbers. The game is sold ridiculously well. According to Sean Murray, I think he did one of the guys, the heads of the studio, he did a little talk recently, and one of the things he said was, it's in gaming, it's one of, obviously he doesn't say which one, but one of the most successful new IPs ever with the amount they've sold. So it obviously sold an absolute ton, which given the amount of hype it had kind of makes sense. It got absolutely ripped to pieces when it came out though, with reviews from not only critics but also the general public. But myself personally, I've got to hand it to the team. They went quiet, which was also massively criticized because they just didn't say anything for so long. But since then, since this kind of 6 months to a year after the launch, it's been a great redemption story. It's been an amazing turnaround. People are genuinely excited and interested in the game. It has generally quite good reviews on Steam now, for example. So it's been great to see it turn around, and not just to kind of put it out, make the money, cut the losses, and then kind of jump off the ship. They've actually stayed with it, which is nice to see. It's refreshing compared to some of these games which have come out and just been terrible at launch, and then they've kind of just given up on it straight away. So a nice little redemption story. Hopefully, we'll see. So then, only other little kind of game announcements that I've got noted down here is just a tiny bit to talk about. That Dreams is finally coming out, kind of. So it is coming out in early access. I think it's April 16th, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is to start the ball rolling with. They've already had a kind of closed beta, which you could sign up to and get given a code. You can start playing around with the creation tools, but this is kind of a big proper launch. There is limited places for it, but this is the game coming out initially, and allowing people to start playing around, start getting their levels together, start sharing ideas, and creating their dreams, in quotes, as it were. Which I think this game, it's had such a long development. It was announced back at the beginning of the PS4, I think.
Yeah,
around
so.
About the time, maybe. Well, they had some tech demos that actually shown off on PS3 hardware, and then since the PS4 came out, they kind of relaunched it almost. And now at the end of the PS4, it's finally coming out. I think there's a lot riding on it. Sony have been pretty brutal with closing studios that make games that don't succeed commercially and critically. So I think there's a lot riding on this for Media Molecule. They built up a lot of goodwill with the Little Big Planet series, and I know Tearaway was kind of a smaller part of the team, but it was still quite well received. But since then, it's been years since they put out a game. So I'm intrigued to see how this goes. I'm actually very excited about the game. I feel really positive about it. But I can 100% see why this game could just fall flat and absolutely nothing. It totally depends on the community.
So the early access starts in April the 16th.
Yeah.
And is there not actually a proper release date yet?
No proper release date yet of when that'll actually be. I imagine it will be a couple of months down the line, just to give people enough time to get to grips with how it works. I think the price for the early access is £25 or €30. I'm not sure about the dollars. I imagine it's probably similar amount. Which again is an interesting price
It just worries me that, because
the price point.
You have to assume that early access price is lower than the actual price of the game when it comes out.
It will be, yeah.
And But surely it's not going to be that much lower, because you're getting access to the game when the game comes out.
Yeah, you're getting access to the full game with this early access. The only thing you don't get is the story mode made by Media Molecule. That will come out when the game fully launches.
So let's say the game comes out and it's, I don't know.
So we're obviously we're gonna be talking about pounds here most of the time. So you've got £25 for the early access. Do we think it a £40 or £30? Or
yeah, I
50?
mean, even going up to 40 seems kind of, you know, you're going to have people kicking themselves they didn't sign up. I mean, obviously there's only limited spaces for the early access, but you're going to have people kicking themselves, and that might cause some bad will there generally, I think.
Potentially, I think that's definitely...
I don't think you can charge any more than that if you're charging the early access 25. And it worries me a bit that this game has been in development for so long.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you said, Sony, you know, there might be a lot riding on this game, I think, for Media Molecule, that it just might not sell that well. I think it will sell well.
Yeah.
But I think because it's going to be less than, say, for example, you know, God of War and Spider-Man and those other first-party Sony games that came out exclusively to the PS4. But this game, I don't think this game is going to have that same draw as those.
No,
because
it almost certainly won't.
It's not that sort of game that you can just sit down and just smash through a couple of story missions and, you know, muck around by swinging through New York.
Yeah.
It's similar to like how I was talking about Super Mario Maker earlier.
Yeah.
The reason people are going to buy it is to see how creative other people can be. Because I think the number of people creating stuff, because of how in depth that looks, is not going to be that huge.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. In terms of broadly speaking, like I will be buying the game. I've kind of tried to sign up for the early access thing, but I will almost certainly not be making anything because I have no creative output when it comes to those kind of things. But I'm super intrigued to see what other people do. But the whole game is based around what those other people do. So if there aren't enough people doing things, then there just isn't enough game.
I hope I'm just being overly pessimistic, but I'm just worried. I'm worried. I thought that game was going to be a £60 like full price game that came out and would make a fair bit of money. I'm not. I hope it does still do well. Yeah.
Well, we've just got to, I suppose, for their sake, it's a studio that I really like everything they've done so far. I'm hoping maybe that if they do come out with a £40 price point, that maybe that will make people kind of think, oh, this is less than a normal £60 game. Let's jump in. It's be an easier access point. However, I think most of the life of that game is based on how many people start creating stuff and how good a job they've done of those creation tools and how easy it is for people to mess about in. I think the only other game that I've got on my list here of kind of announcements that we've got an interest in or can talk about something is Telling Lies, which is Sam Barlow's new game, who is the guy who created Her Story. So it's his kind of not sequel, I don't think it's the right thing, but a spiritual sequel to that. Similar kind of premise in terms of you're at a computer screen. I believe this time you have access to a hacked NSA hard drive. So you're kind of you're diving deep into this hard drive to uncover secrets and whatnot. But I think at least I know for myself, the goodwill that he's built from Her Story and how incredible an experience I thought that was, I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, I just needed to know that it was the same guy that made Her Story. I'm just in. I'll play that no matter what. Her Story was such a good and original game.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know, the premise being is that you sit down at a police computer screen, you're going through basically video records of an interview of a lady. You start out and there's a search bar, you type in a word or a phrase, and any video that has that word or phrase mentioned will then be highlighted. There's a grid of let's just say 100 different videos to look at. It will highlight the videos that have that word or that phrase, and then you can watch those videos and see it mentioned.
But I might say it only brought up the top 3 hits.
I think it's either 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not all of them at a time. So
you had to be very specific with what you were looking for. It was such a cool idea for a game.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Obra Dinn, which we played recently.
Yes, Return of the Obra Dinn.
Really, you have to use your own detective skills, and
you
know everything's there for you to work out what's happened, but you have to be really specific and really think about what the actual solution is.
that it harkens back to those kind of days of also feeling like you want to get out a bit of pen and paper to start writing down clues that you've uncovered, and it kind of turns you into a detective. So it's great, really, really fantastic game. Hugely recommend Her Story. So hopefully Telling Lies will continue in the similar vein of quality. So yeah, those are some of the kind of big announcements that happened in terms of games, new games being announced. But there's also been, over the last couple of months, a couple of pretty big game launches that have happened. So games that have come out which have been surprises or have been disappointments. So if we chat about a couple of those, I suppose, the first one we've got on here, I think it's just because it's in alphabetical order. Oh no, it won't be in alphabetical. Is Apex Legends, which I think took the world by surprise, from Respawn, who made Titanfall 1 and 2. They've also been tasked with creating the new Star Wars game, which I'm sure we'll be talking about more in a couple of weeks' time when it actually gets properly announced. But yeah, so they came out of Shadow Dropped pretty much out of nowhere, this battle royale game, which is obviously flavour of the, I hesitate to say month, more like year far with Fortnite.
It beat Fortnite's concurrent player record, didn't it?
Yeah, for quite a long time. It's still definitely vying with it for that kind of top spot. Every now and then when I look on Twitch, it's kind of either just ahead of it or just behind it, but it's always there and thereabout. But for the weeks when it launched, it consistently was significantly ahead, at least in terms of Twitch viewers, which is interesting because it's obviously a battle royale. The premise being you drop onto an island as a team and you've got to win, basically. So that's the premise, but it's very different compared to Fortnite. Fortnite being a third-person game where you can do a load of building, and has a very, very cartoonesque look. Apex Legends, still stylized, but much more realistic feeling. It's a first-person shooter, much more about the mobility of getting round. And I suppose you can kind of put in quotes more about your kind of skills with a gun and shooting as a first-person shooter compared to your skills of building from Fortnite, and kind of learning the map. We've played a couple of games with it. It's good fun. It's now getting to the point where it's pretty brutal if you're not a great.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've played it enough to be able to be any good at it at all. So.
Yeah, so it's definitely getting to that stage now where the kind of experts of the game are consistently taking over. But it's still fun to be in a squad of friends. If you can get, obviously the interesting thing with this is that it's in squads of 3. So you have to be paired up with 3 people. You can kind of go off on your own once you get into the level, but you're in a team of 3. And yeah, it really did take the world kind of by surprise, I think, really. There's I don't know whether it'd be right to say there's a lot riding on its success, but they certainly did well with the game. At least it seems so far. It just recently had its first Battle Pass release, which I know the reception's been a bit lukewarm to that, especially in comparison to how much Fortnite's done. But it will be interesting to see whether it manages to keep it up and keep people engaged, I think.
Yeah.
And on a different end of the spectrum, still EA, we have something called Anthem, which recently launched. So talk to me about Anthem and its kind of launch.
Yeah, so Anthem... when was it released? When was it revealed?
Revealed back in 2016, I believe. 2017, I think 16.
Yeah. And I remember it being revealed because I remember seeing that EA logo come up, and I now saw it. Then you see BioWare. And I was like, BioWare. Of
Dragon Age,
Mass Effect.
Fame.
And I thought, wow, okay, this is gonna, take my notice 100%. So you watch it, and then you just see kind of Destiny with flying.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't super keen on it. And then end of last year, the beta or whatever it was, the demo came out for the game. I played it, and I actually really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed the feel of flying around in this mech, trying to make the mech look like Iron Man.
Yeah. So it was 2017.
2017
properly.
And it felt cool. It did feel like Destiny. You're in a group of people, going around fighting random alienish looking monsters,
Mm-hmm.
some large crab people,
Nice.
stuff like that. You know, you're always fighting crab people in games.
Yeah.
And I thought it felt okay. And then, so I pre-ordered it. I was like, I was really looking forward to it. And then the reactions started to come out to the demo. The reactions started to come out critically, and you just sort of think, oh no. And it obviously, as it turned out, the game just seems really shallow again. There's just not enough to do. There's not enough, and it's one of those again where it might get better with time.
Yeah.
But I'm just finding that I don't care.
Yeah.
Like if a game releases badly, you know, I remember both of us being super excited for Destiny 1, and we played that when it came out, finished it really quickly, played a bit of online, got okay at online, but was just really like let down by it.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really, and so I think I just sold it probably, didn't really, and then obviously Taken King came out, that was supposed to be very good. Destiny 2 came out, it was supposed to be okay, an improvement, but I had that bitter taste in my mouth from Destiny, and then you just see the same thing happening with Anthem, like, and kind of what I mentioned back earlier with No Man's Sky as well, when a game releases poorly, and that just sort of means, nah, I don't really want to give it my time. And so I think that's what's happened with Anthem, really. Not, you know. Yeah,
it's been crazy to see the launch of that game go up in flames almost. And then there was talk of people's PlayStation 4 was kind of locking up, which I don't think anyone's was ever bricked. Actually, I think that was a bit of fake news kind of going about. But there was huge crashes involving crashing your PS4 as well. So it had to say the least, it was a rocky start to its life. I know they've promised to keep working at it, keep adding updates, and they've got a whole year or two planned of things to add to the game, but it seems pretty bleak for it, at least so far. We've seen that things like No Man's Sky being this kind of almost redemption story, but I feel doubtful about it with Anthem, especially given BioWare's announcement a while ago back at the Video Game Awards last year of that they're working on the next Dragon Age, and a little teaser going up of that. You've got to kind of wonder how much they're going to pour into that and take away from Anthem if it's just not doing well and there's not engagement with the community. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but it's not looking great for its future, I think. A couple of other launches which we on it, I don't think we're able to talk too much about because we haven't played. Things like Far Cry New Dawn, the standalone release kind of expansion-esque thing from Far Cry 5, which they seem to do between the numbered entries. You also had like Crackdown 3, which was pretty roasted on release after so many years in development. We said Devil May Cry 5, which I know people are really, really buzzed about, really excited and really happy with how it's all shaken out. And then you've got things like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice from Software, people who made Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Demon Souls. Their next game kind of set in Japan, which is again something which we've dabbled in with a bit of Bloodborne, and I've dabbled a bit in Demon Souls previously, and Dark Souls, but they are certainly something. Those games, they're tricky to get into, I think, initially, but they have a pretty rabid fan base who love them, and so far Sekiro seems to be doing fantastic as well. I think it's going to be up there for a lot of people for their best game of the year when that comes around. Absolutely. Only other thing I just had on here was just about The Walking Dead finishing the final season. The final episode I think just came out, or was just about to come out, which it's been quite a journey for that game.
I think it's one of those as well where I don't think I played the series before that. I don't think. And I'm not going to play that.
No,
I don't really want to.
The first series was so groundbreaking almost, and so interesting from a storytelling point of view. But it seems as though it's just kind of disengaged a bit with the community. slowly faded from.
Did you play season 2 at all?
I didn't actually play it. No, I always wanted to. I've got it downloaded, kind of ready to go.
Yeah,
at some point,
season 2 is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a Telltale game. There was all
Yeah.
It wasn't so much. It was about the choices, but then obviously the choices don't really mean that much in those games.
You still get to pretty much the same ending-esque.
But I think, I don't know. I just don't really have any interest. I'd like to know how it ends. I guess I'll probably look that up.
Yeah.
At some point,
just
see what happens to Clem and all that.
Yeah.
But I and obviously with all that's gone on with Telltale being shut down and everything, I don't really want to. I'm not sure where my money might be going if I bought that game. So,
yes. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Yeah. And so what we'll do next, I think, is we'll move on from kind of those announcements. We'll just play a little bit of game to kind of see us out towards the end of the episode, obviously. And one of the things we wanted to do kind of at the end of an episode was just kind of play a bit of a game, try something different. So this time we have a special young indie company called Touch and Cloth Games who have written into us actually, and they've asked us if they wanted to help them come up with an idea for a game. So this is going to be our kind of let's make a game segment. And they've written into us and they've said the premises or the name that they want to go for is Jurassic Shark. Okay. So straight away I'm intrigued. And I think I'm going to read out the little premise they gave to me. Okay. So they've sent us in and they've said, right, you play as a character called Hunter McGowan, a world-famous biologist and paleontologist who has decided to attempt to resurrect the great lizards of the past. You face many ethical decisions along the way about the rights and wrongs of bringing the dinosaurs back. So that is kind of the premise initially of the game. So they wanted us to build on that and to come up with a couple of ideas to come up with an idea that is going to sell millions and millions of copies and dominate the gaming world. So I'm going to present that to the floor, and we'll riff off some ideas and see if any of them stick, I suppose. So yeah, what do you think then? Off that basis, what would you want to add to that? What do you think is going to connect with an audience?
So firstly, we were just talking about Telltale.
Yeah.
Telltale's gone. There's no more Telltale games.
Okay.
So
do you think there's a gap in the market?
That's a gap in the market straight away that we're gonna fill here. So Jurassic Shark is going to be an episodic.
Yeah.
Very heavily story-based game.
Okay. So literally picking up the baton from Telltale. Yeah.
Okay. So we're probably going to be looking at 4 episodes, maybe 6.
Okay. I like that.
Depending on how much money or how many pre-orders we get, how much money we make from each episode. And also I think we're going to try a new business model where, everyone at the moment, you have these episodic games. You've got Life is Strange, you have the Telltale games. And essentially you'd pay for a season pass.
Yeah, so you buy the game for 30 quid or something, and that gives you every episode, and they're broken up into individual episodes, which are priced slightly more if you buy them individually than the season pass.
So that's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, that's dumb.
Okay.
Because essentially then you're breaking it out, and it's going to be about 5 episodes. It's going to end up being about $5 per episode. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Okay. You start out. You remember how you used to buy those magazine things that would give you a little collectible?
What, the ones where you have to build something
so you might build something, and what it would do is it'd have this great advert on TV for it, and the first one would be like £2.
Yeah,
and you're like, wow, £2 for that.
Was it Camelot? Was that the company?
It might be something.
I don't know. Yeah.
And you'd be, wow, £2. So you go out, you buy it, and then you don't see the little terms and conditions that say each magazine or thing collectible after that is £10.
Right. So they rope you in with that initial cheap thing, especially starting off building. Yeah. And then you're trapped in there with this. If you want to finish it, you got to keep paying.
That's the business model we go with. So episode 1 is $5.99.
I like where your head's at with this, especially seeing as the first thing we've decided to do about this game is sort out the finance, the money side of it. It doesn't matter about the game, whether it's good, interesting gameplay or story. Let's make sure we can rinse people for money.
Games are money. That's why.
Absolutely.
That's why people make games. Yeah. Okay. Let's get that clear.
Yeah. Sure.
So episode 1, $4.99.
$4.99.
That's cheap.
Okay.
That's cheap.
Okay. $4.99. I'm with you.
And you draw people in, and episode 1 has a big cliffhanger at the end of it.
Okay. Yeah.
It goes on. Then episode 2 comes out, maybe a couple of months later.
Yeah.
And that one will set you back $8.99. Okay, you just increase that price, but people want to see what happens after that cliffhanger. They buy it.
We've roped them in at that point.
And by the time you get to either episode 4
Yeah.
or episode 6, depending on how much money we make from the other ones.
Yeah.
That price, to play the last episode, you're paying in excess of $25.99.
In excess of £25.
Because then when you add all that up, it'll be about the price of a AAA game. Maybe a bit more. Yeah. But this is games as a service. We are providing this over a long period of time. Exactly. This isn't something that you can pick up and play over a weekend.
Okay.
Because obviously it's coming out monthly.
Exactly. But what I like as well, and potentially we could add in the idea. So we've roped someone in with this cheap, really great first succinct experience. Then the next episode, you say kind of $8.99 or something along those lines.
Yeah. Not a huge jump.
Yeah. Let's make it slightly shorter though. So they're actually getting less for their money, but now they're roped in. They've got to see the story through to the end, no matter what. And every episode after that, we make it more expensive and shorter. So therefore, we're maximizing our profits because we have to do less work for it.
And you make the credits slightly slower, how they scroll.
Yeah, clever, subtle.
More gaps between the names. And, just little tricks like that to actually make the game longer. So that's kind of my business plan for this game.
Okay, I like the business plan.
I was thinking more about then what actually happens.
Okay,
so Hunter McGowan, he's a paleontologist, a biologist. He wants to bring back dinosaurs, and obviously, that's kind of the premise of the game.
Yeah.
But I think you go into a bit of a sort of action stealth game from there.
Okay. So we talking third person, first person?
I think you're going third person.
Okay.
You've got, because obviously we're looking at filling that telltale gap, you're going to have moral decisions you need to make as you go through. You've got people that are protesting. They don't want dinosaurs back.
Of course.
They've seen famous movies of dinosaurs where they're brought back and what that can mean.
Yeah, and it never works out well.
It never works out well. And so people are protesting. And you have to decide, how do you deal with these protesters? Right. Do you try and just outwit them? Do you just try and talk to them logically, or do you kill them?
Use force.
You can use force
Murder.
To shut down.
We're talking about murdering people.
You can murder people. I think that's going to be one of the options in the game, is that you do have the chance to kill those who disagree with you.
And does that decision come into the first episode as well? Start out with that, or is that something which is brought in?
That might be in with the cliffhanger.
Oh, as part of the cliffhanger.
That might be part of the cliffhanger that you bring in the killing.
So you're this meek, mild scientist just kind of trying to do some crazy experiments, and then at the end of the game, you could become a cold-blooded murderer.
Also, Hunter McGowan is a shark man.
Is a shark man?
I mean, the game's called Jurassic Shark, so you have to bring the sharks into it somehow.
Okay, well, that's an interesting
When
way
I
to
say
bring in
shark
sharks.
man, I mean, he, from neck down, he is a man.
Yeah.
But his head is the head of a shark.
Right. Okay.
But this is never mentioned in the game. So you can see quite clearly that he has got the head of a shark.
Yeah.
But
no attention's brought to it.
No attention's brought to it.
I see.
Okay.
I see.
Because then you've got people thinking, well, when is this going to become a plot point?
Yeah.
That's a part of the mystery that leads people on to pay extra for the later episodes.
I see, because they're wondering how that resolves.
And also you have those moments at the end of each episode where there's a little teaser for the next episode. Mm-hmm. Maybe part of the teaser, we tease people starting to bring up the fact that he's got a shark head.
Yeah.
But that scene's not in the next episode.
Oh, yeah. So there's like a sizzle reel of the next episode, which doesn't actually have things in the next episode. Yeah. It's just to get people to buy the next episode.
Yes, 100%.
Amazing. That will definitely rope people in.
Everyone else in the game is a normal human.
Yeah.
Except for one other character. Okay. Now, essentially, the game is obviously going to culminate in there's going to be a big T-Rex that you're going to have to, fight, and it'll either be a T-Rex that you yourself have brought back to life from the Jurassic era.
So your experiments have worked.
You've
been successful.
You've got rid of the protesters.
Yeah.
That you've also got a rival. Okay, a rival paleontologist, biologist.
All good games need a rival.
Who is called Geraldo La Quinta.
Geraldo La Quinta.
And he is a tiger man.
I see.
Okay,
so he's also an animal person.
He's got the head of a tiger.
Yeah.
But the rest of the body is human. But that, again, It's never mentioned.
Never mentioned. Okay.
And either because obviously Telltale that you get a moral decision, but really you're being funneled down into the same ending anyway.
Yeah.
So this way you're either fighting a T-Rex that you've brought back to life, or the T-Rex has been brought back by Geraldo La Quinta, who has stolen your plans.
Right. So either way, the T-Rex is going to be there. It's either you've done it or your nemesis has done it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think actually, when you think that the game is going to culminate with a battle with a T-Rex, that's worth $25.99 to see
the T-Rex.
To see a shark man fight a T-Rex.
Yeah. Which either he created.
Yeah.
Or a shark man fight a tiger man and a T-Rex.
Yeah.
Because he's jealous.
Yeah. So I mean that's worth. I'd pay $25.99.
Yeah.
And if I'd pay
it's a solid premise.
I have to stress once again.
Mm-hmm.
No one else in the game has an animal head.
Yeah. And never mentioned.
It's never mentioned.
Never mentioned whatsoever. Okay.
It never comes up.
That will keep people ticking along. Kind of. They will consistently be thinking, when is this going to be brought up? And we never do it. Other than, as you say, maybe in some kind of sizzle reels of the next episode, people talking about it, but actually that never makes the actual game.
Yeah.
On purpose. That's not that we've run out of money or anything. We're on purposely subverting people's expectations to put a positive spin on it.
That's my pitch for Jurassic Shark. I don't want to go into any more detail.
Yes, we are under NDA. I must make this clear that we're under NDA, that we can't talk about too much more. We've actually been given a load of design documents for the game, kind of character designs, things like that. But they wanted to run by a few ideas with us first, and then for us to expand on it and maybe get kind of the community involved with that as well. However, we need to be careful not to talk too much, as you say, kind of because we don't want the ideas going. We can't have someone else making this game. This is kind of TC Games premise with our input.
Please don't steal this idea.
Yeah, please do not steal this idea. It's worth millions and millions of pounds.
Please.
Great. So I think that's we've set that out. We know where we're going with this. I'll get back to TC Games. I'll give them all of the information. I'll give them the episodes so they can hear back what we've kind of spitballed here, and hopefully we'll have an update on the game in a couple of weeks' time, or probably actually a couple of months, because it takes a while to make a game. Just to finish off then with obviously the first episode here, I'm sure the episodes are going to change over time with how we do things as we get kind of comfortable with certain segments and things like that. But just to finish off, I thought it would be a nice little thing to play, a tiny little game just to kind of cap off the episode. And this time I wanted to pose a question to both of us. I don't know the answer to this question. You don't know the answer, I'm assuming.
No.
And the question is going to be, I'm going to kind of do a little bet almost between each other, and the closest person wins, which we will reveal on the next episode. And so there's something called Nintendo Labo, which is from Nintendo. It is a cardboard, create your own game-esque controller type thing.
Yeah.
There's a new thing, they've just brought out a VR version of it, which again, you basically strap your Switch to your face, which is interesting. But in a standard Labo box, the base box of Labo, how many sheets of cardboard do you think there are? How many individual sheets, not including the box, but individual sheets of cardboard are there for Nintendo Labo? So yeah, what would your...
My guess is 14.
Okay. Well, that's
1-4.
1-4. Okay. Well, I was going to guess with 6.
6.
Yeah. So you're going at the high. You're going the high guess. I'll take the low guess on that, and we'll see if we're somewhere in the middle. Actually, no. I'll change it to 7 because then there can't be a middle.
Well, it's not gonna be an odd number, is there?
True. Okay. It'll be 6. Mine's 6. Guess is 6. Okay. So next episode we'll come back to that and we will reveal the very important winner of that. But for now, I'd like to say thanks, and thank you, Chris, obviously, for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the next episode of Bomb Squad.